אנחנו מאמינים בני מאמינים, אנחנו מאמינים בני מאמינים, ואין לנו עמים להישואל, ואין לנו עמים להישואל, אוי אלו אלו על אבינו, אלו אלו על אבינו, אבינו שבשמיים, אנחנו מאמינים בני מאמינים, ואין לנו עמים להישואל, אוי אלו אלו על אבינו, אבינו שבשמיים.
Shabbat Shalom. Boker Tov. Good to be back after a nice little weekend off. Well, actually, I didn't have a whole weekend off, but I had some time off last weekend after Shabbat. It was so hot here, forced me to go to Temecula. So I actually hung out there in a little cooler weather, maybe a hair cooler at times, but it was really nice to have a little time away. But good to be back here on this morning looking at the Shiva Na. We're going to review this lesson that we introduced, and today we'll be recording it, so hopefully we can answer as many questions as possible. Let's start with a word of prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father and our King, we thank you, Lord God, for blessing us on this Shabbat, not only to learn your Torah, to study the prophets, and to hear from the royal writings, Father, Lord God. We thank you that we have the revelation that Yeshua is the Messiah. We have eyes to see and ears to hear and hearts to perceive the deep things of God. And Father, our ears are able to hear the footsteps of Messiah. Father, we thank you, Lord God, for his heel crushing the head of the serpent. We pray, Lord God, today, Lord God, that we would make ourselves alert and aware of the soon coming of Mashiach. We pray, Lord God, that we would prepare ourselves for his coming, not only for him to return and take over the earth and the nations of this world, but Father, Lord God, that the language of Hebrew will become the universal tongue for the world. It will become Lashon HaKodesh. It will become the holy tongue. And I pray, Lord God, that you will prepare us now to speak the language we will speak for eternity, Lord God. I thank you for that language that's intimate that you've given us, your language, Father. And I pray that we would desire to learn it in Yeshua's name. Amen. Good thought, isn't it? That Hebrew will be the universal language. English will no longer be the one of choice. We will use the intimate language of Hebrew because that's the language of the Torah, and all nations will learn Torah. So they can't learn Torah unless they learn Hebrew. So it's going to be a beautiful thing. So let's start with our Aleph Beit today, one time through, and then our vowels. 1, 2, 3. Aleph Beit Gimel Dalet Hey. Vav Zayin Chet Tet Yud Kaf Lamed Mem Nun Samech Ayin Pei Sadi Kuf Resh Shin Tav. Tov Me'od, Metzuyan. So let's hear our vowels. Just sound them out one time through. 1, 2, 3. A, E, I, O, U. Right. So a couple of standard things we've looked at. How many letters? 22. How many prefixes? 11. How many vowels do we have? Vowel sounds? 5 vowels. How many vowel indicators do we have? 5. We also have 5. These are vowel indicators. And we also have how many gutturals? 5. So we have these 5 gutturals. Officially, there's 4, but Reish is kind of treated as one, so it's usually Reish and the gutturals. It's kind of like a musical group. Reish and gutturals. We should probably put that together in one forum or something. All right, so then significant to our lesson, we had how many letters usually have a dagesh, that there's a certain set of rules. It's either called Beged Kefat or Bagad Kefat, either way. So there's 6 of them. So we have either Beged, I learned it as Beged Kefat, so either way, it's the capital letters I'm drawing the most important. Okay, so that would be the Beit, the Gimel, the Dalet, and then the Kaf. I'll do it this way. The Kaf, the Pei, and the Tav. So it used to be that these letters had special sounds if there was a dagesh in them.
No longer?
Not in most of the world, there is no longer a difference except for transliteration sometimes. although there are certain cultures and areas where Jews do pronounce them differently, one of our vowels is called sagol. Well, it actually used to be sagor. So it was a gimel sound. Gimel versus a g. It was a gimel. So that's something that we no longer hear presently, but that used to be a soft, what we could consider a GH. So the kind of soft B would be a V without the dagesh. So if I remove these. And the Dalet, they sometimes soften the strong D sound for Dalet to Dalet. So it just softens. Adam versus David. So you do sometimes hear that, but it's not significant enough to really force a rule on it. But in the ancient times, that was an issue. So we definitely know that the kaf becomes a KH or CH sound, kaf. We have the pei becoming fe, PH or F. And then it used to be that the same rule was for the T versus TH sound, which is why we have transliterations like Beth instead of Bet. So it would never be an Americanized TH as in the, but it was sometimes pronounced with a softer T sound if there was no digestion. Now there is an Ashkenazi / Yiddish kind of rule of thumb that whenever the dagesh is not there, instead of making it a soft T, they just change it to a complete S sound. So they soften the tav to a soft. So instead of tav, it becomes soft. And so,
Yours?
yeah, I'm getting thumbs up. My daughter thinks she can call me at any time. So, man, this is why my wife gets me these little gadgets. Because she just wants to reach me at any time, I think is what it is. All right, so here we have these special letter rules. And what were the vowels indicators?
Aleph.
Al,
We had aleph, a,
K,
Vav.
vav, yud,
Ein.
and ayin. Okay. The gutturals are similar,
Aleph.
but aleph. Usually you see them written in this. Well, I'll go ahead and keep them in order. That way we can kind of make a connection to them. Chet, ayin, and resh. Okay. All right. So what we're looking at for today is two usages of the shiva. We have a shiva na, and we have, not to be confused with shana na na na. We also have a rule that we'll learn for the shiva nach. Shiva nach, as in Noach. It is a shiva that rests. Because Noah means to rest, and it's the same root letters. The shiva na, which is just a nun and an ayin, means to move. So one moves, the other one rests. Okay? Typically, we are learning today's shiva na, which means it is a shiva that moves, or we would call it a vocal shiva. Okay? A vocal shiva. Right. So here we have the lesson. Shiva na is a moving shiva, meaning it's pronounced and not blended with the preceding letter. Here is a simple way to remember. So we're going to take what we call a mnemonic of taking Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, which you all should have memorized by now. Let me hear you say it. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. Great. The rule for Aleph is what letter of the Hebrew alphabet out of 22? The first. So this is a rule about the first letter of a word. So the way to remember this is just remember the first letter of the alphabet, Aleph. Okay? So this is all about first letters. If a shiva appears as the first letter of the word, it is always a shiva na. That means it keeps moving or sounding and it makes a sound. Even if it's a short sound, as it is the shortest E vowel sound you can have, it's still sounding. It sounded to just enough to be able to give that consonant letter a little bit of sound. Okay? So, in the 22 letters, if you see a word that starts with a shva, it's always going to be a shvana. That means it's moving or sounding. It's a vocal shva. There are other shvas, like the shvanach, that rests, that gives you a glottal stop, as in the word mishnah. The mishnah we looked at last week, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I think it was last week. Mishnah has a shva, not under the first letter, but under the second letter. So it would look like this in Hebrew. So you obviously, you have your kamatz hey, a vowel indicator, right? The letter hey could indicate a vowel. It can also be a cholam. But in this case, we have the na sound. So we got that part down. And we know it's the dot on the right for mish, right? In this case, we could have had a long vowel, but we're going to have a short vowel here, which is just hirik. The hirik is a short vowel. Because if we're going to do the opposite, the shvanach, we only come to a glottal stop when it's a short vowel preceding the shva. So here would be our shva. That would actually give us 2 syllables. So instead of sounding this as mi, she, na, having 3 syllables, the nach, which is resting, makes this rest or come to a glottal stop. Mish. I just stop in my tracks. Mish. It's like as if there was a little stop sign here telling us completely stop on this one. We stop moving, we start resting. It's like a little Shabbat right there. And so, when you have a short vowel and then a shva, it's going to come to a glottal stop. If I had a long vowel, so I add the letter yud in here to make a hirik yud, now I just changed the vowel underneath the first letter to from short, or from a medium length, as we like to call it, to what? Long. So now it's going to get its own sound because it's longer. I don't have time for stopping. I'm moving. I'm sounding long. I'm saying me, right? Long. I don't have time to stop anything. I'm sounding. My shofar is blowing. So no one's going to tell me go, doo, 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 doo. No, you're not coming to a glottal stop. You're not coming to a staccato blast. You're going to have a long sound. So it's a syllable all by itself, right? If I shorten it, I'm cutting it off quickly. So here we have, this would be now 3 syllables. Mi, right?
Yes.
And then this would be she, because now I'm going to sound it as a shvana, and then it would be na. That's not the word though. We don't study the Mishnah. We study the Mishnah. You see the difference? What controlled the shva? The length of the vowel that precedes it. If it's short, it's going to stop. If it's long, it's going to keep on going. Just imagine the shofar. If I do, a staccato blast, they're stopping quickly. So each one's becoming its own. Basically, the shofar would be the stopping of my sound because it's resting. In this case, with the yud following it, all I did was lengthen the e sound to e, right? It's like an I and a Y together, basically. And that would not be the shva na. That would become a shva. Actually, this would be a shva. This is the perfect example of a shva na. But if I take away the yud, like I originally started with Mishnah, it's the shva nach. I meant sorry, I didn't put my sleeve. That's what I meant to write. Oh no, that's the word. This is word. Yeah, this is it. Notice the nach. So this means it's resting. So the shva without the letter yud is no longer going to be 3-syllable word. It's 2-syllable. Here's syllable 1. Here's syllable 2. Mishnah. Does everybody understand that? Any questions on that? Because that's very important to understand. What controlled that shva from becoming a shva was the length of the vowel preceding it. Okay? So let's go to the simple rule that we just learned to make sure we're not confusing the na with the na. Mishnah is not a good example of a local Shabbat, is it? It is the example of a silent Shabbat. The Shabbat that's silent is called what? Shabbanah. What are we learning today? Shabbanah. We're not learning Shabbanah. Shabbanah we'll learn next week. Okay? So we're only concerned today about Shabbats that move, Shabbats that sound, Shabbats that keep on sounding like a shofar keeps sounding. Okay? So the general rule is Aleph. The Aleph rule is referring to the first letter of a word. If a Shabbat is under the first letter of a word. Because that's what an Aleph is, right? Now, what number is the letter Beit in the Aleph alphabet? 2. It's the second one, 2. Okay? So now, if we talk about the second letter of a word, these first 2 are based upon the order of the Aleph or the Beit in the alphabet, first or second. If there's 2 Shabbats in a row, or in this case it's not the second, but it's just to keep it as 2. If there's 2 Shabbats in a row in the middle of a word, the second one is a Shabbanah. So here we have second referring to the second Shabbat out of 2. So we'll look in a minute for an example of this. Okay, so let me give you an example of the first one. We used this one last week. Hopefully you'll give this today. Where should the Shabbat go if we're dealing with the Aleph, which is under the first letter? Under the first letter, right? Because why are we using Aleph to remember this? Aleph is the first letter of the alphabet. So anytime a Shabbat is under the first letter, there's a general rule here. It's supposed to sound or keep moving. It might be short, but it still gets recognized or sounded. So, tzedakah. Not kneel, right? But the offering you give when you put your money in the tzedakah box. Okay? And Pete said, yeah. He counts the offering most of the time. So he has to make sure that we're moving, right? Congregation doesn't move if it's not giving, right?
Right.
Come on, something to learn out of that. It's always a biblical lesson. Okay, tzedakah. So technically, this is transliterated as tzed. I'll just do both of them so you can see it that it is sounded. Da. Ka. Tzedakah. The only difference is this one's really short. It's actually a reduced sound, and then we have 2 long sounds. So the last syllable is going to get the accent there, right? And most of the time in Hebrew, the last syllable gets the accent. Okay? Tzedakah, tzedakah, tzedakah. Right, as in Torah.
Isn't the second vowel a little softer of the 2 arms?
No, it's the accent, meaning they're both the same length, but because whenever we have 2 long vowels, we learn that the second one gets the accent. When it's 2 medium vowels, the first of the 2 get the accent. So Erev Tov versus Erev. It's not Erev Shabbat, right? It's Erev. Yeah, except for our southern friends like Joey. Okay, so this is
Will you say that again? 2 long vowels get what?
This first
2 long vowels, the second one gets the accent. 2 medium vowels, the first one gets the accent. What that means is I lean more on the first versus the second. Because if I lean more on the last, what happens is the sound goes from medium to long. Because I'm leaning too long on it. It's like leaning on a horn. The last sound you hear is going to sound longer. So if I lean too long on it, I lengthen the sound by not putting the accent on the first one. Right? I have to keep it short by putting the accent on the first one versus the last one, because then I'll just keep sounding. We don't want to keep sounding. We want to keep short. So that's an example of the Shabbat underneath the first letter. Okay. Now, let's take the letter Beit and find an example. I said we'd find one in the Shema. Okay, so we're going to be looking for 2 Shabbats that are underneath a word. And what's the order? It says if there are 2 Shabbats in a row of a word. The second one is a Sheba Na. If two Shebas appear at the end of a word, as in the word Ant, they are both Sheba Na, meaning they're both silent. But most of the time, we're not talking about the two at the end. We're talking about when they're in the middle of the word. Okay? So if we look at the Shema, which starts with chapter 6 of Deuteronomy, which we've already had, and verse number 4, I go through, let's sing the first part of it, we know it together. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Okay, then you get to the Be'ahavta. Be'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha. Found it. The word for soul is nephesh. I should have better pin here. And it's not as black as it should be. Okay, so we have nephesh, right? Is the singular word for soul. It's normally pronounced like this. Okay? Nephesh. We don't have nephesh. We don't have soul. We have your soul. So, at the end of a word, not a prefix, but a suffix will be added to make masculine singular your. So this becomes possessive now. Your soul. What is the ending for masculine singular when we say peace? And we say, what's your peace like and how are you? Ma, shalom, ha. So we lost a vowel in shalom. Instead of shalom, it's shalom. And we added ha. That's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to add that ha ending. The CHA at the end of this word means your. Masculine singular, ha. What's the sound we add, ladies, to shalom if it's a female? Ech is added. So ma, what? Shalom, peace, ech. What's your peace like, ladies? Ma shlomech. Okay? Now, we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about the masculine form because the commandment is always addressed to the male. Why? Because he's the head of the household. He will teach his wife the way Adam taught Eve, or should have taught Eve. And they will both teach their children together as a family union. Okay? So she gets it first, then the children get it. Okay? So it shows that men and women should spend time together in the morning, devotional time, before they even spend time with their children, raising their kids. They should be clear on how they're going to live their life and raise their children before they communicate to their children, so they're not communicating two different things. Amen. Okay. So the word here, a good word, you're ready. Hebrew class. All right, so the word is nafshecha. Okay, so the vowels will change. Instead of a sabol, we're going to have a patach. We're going to actually put a sheba here and sheba here. Now, you're probably going to ask me, why are we putting that? Well, I didn't write the language. I just teach it. So we can't change words or ask, why did the nephesh have two segols? It's just the word. God created the word. So in the rule here, just know you're going to lose vowels. So like shalom, we instead of saying shalom, we say shalom cha. We lost a vowel, right? Shalom. We don't have two anymore. We have like one basically, and shalom cha. We lose it with a sheba. Now the question is always whether it's a sheba na or sheba na. But notice there's a reduction in that sound through a sheba. In this case, we have both. Because we had two E's, now we've reduced to both of them. Okay, so what we have here is a syllable here, which is closed. Notice this is a patah. Is that long or medium? Medium. If it was long, it would keep on sounding, and it's not going to come to a glottal stop. It would actually create a sheba na by itself. But now we have a separate rule. We have two shebas. What is our rule for bass? If there are two shebas in a row, in the middle of a word. Where do we have these two Shabats? In the middle of the word. It says, the second one is a Shabbat Na. So the second one is going to sound. This is our Shabbat Na, right here. The first one is going to be Anach, or silent. So this one is silent, and this one is vocal. So silent means it's going to come to a glottal stop. Here's our little stop sign again, right? Stop. So instead of having nafe, shecha, we have naf. And then we sound the next one, shecha, nafshecha. Okay, so let's walk this through. The rule was, if it's a short vowel, this is going to become a resting Shabbat, which we already know by the rule. If I have two in the middle of the word, two Shabbats in the middle of the word, the first one's going to be silent, meaning it's going to be a nach. The second one is going to become our Shabbat na. Because the rule is bait, two, second. Two Shabbats, second Shabbat. So two represents two of them, and the two also represents second. So we have two in a row, and we have the second one of the two getting the Shabbat na sound, meaning it's sounded, it's vocal. Okay? So here is the word in the Shema. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך. And if we were doing cantillation today, if we were doing a bar mitzvah training, we would talk about that. That nafshecha. That's part of the lesson that we learned in bar mitzvah training, which we'll learn next week. We'll actually use the Shema next week to learn for some rules for bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah training. Okay, nafshecha. So what was the rule here? If there's two Shabbats in the middle of the word, the first one's silent, the second one is vocal. Okay? Let's see if we can find any others. Okay? So that was your soul. So sing it with me. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושינתם לבניך ותיאורתם בשבתך בשבתך. Okay. So we have a word here, the letter beit. We have shin, beit, tav, and then we have archab sufi. Okay, so be means in. That's just a prefix, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Then we have the same letters for Shabbat. And we have the same exact Chav Sofit with the Kamatz. Okay? So you already know this means what? What did it mean here? Your soul. Okay, so this is your. Masculine, singular, your. Okay? Referring to the person. Okay? So, we already know the letters in between are Shabbat. And we know the letter Beit means in. So, if you're looking at this, these words that I command today, let it be in your heart, you should teach them to your sons, and talk to them when you sit in your house, and when you walk away, when you lie down, and when you rise up. So, notice here, when you lie, speak of them in your Shabbat, in your house, and then it says, and when you walk by the way. So actually, It's the word to sit. So this word, these letters that would normally be a Shabbat, it means to sit down. When you sit down in your house, when you have a Shabbat rest in your house. So the perfect time to teach Torah is when you have a Shabbat rest. So the Shema is telling us Nashacha with a silent Shabbat and then a vocal one right after, because the rule is 2 of them. And then the same thing here. In the Shabbat of your, in your Shabbat, in your sitting down for your rest. You're to study Torah, to talk about Torah, to meditate on Torah. That's what the Shema is telling you. So these are the Shin, the Beit, and the Tav for Shabbat. It also is Yoshev, to sit down. So when you sit down in your house, that's what this line is. So the rule is what? If I have what? Talk to me, guys. If I have two Shabbats where? In the middle of a word, the first one is silent, the second one is vocal or sounding. Okay? So, transliterate this for me. What's the first prefix? Be. Okay? So we already know what that looks like. Okay? Now let's get to the word. What's it? Shin would be SH. What's the vowel underneath?
Hearing.
Period.
I.
Now, is it long or medium?
Medium.
It's medium. So you already know this is going to be a quiet Shabbat.
Right.
This is going to come to a glottal stop, right? Because if it's short, this stops it. If it's long, it's all by itself, a whole separate syllable.
Right.
It's going to stay open versus closed. Okay? So, Beshiv Techa. Beshiv, right? Glottal stop, Shiv. Instead of Beshivetecha, no, it's Beshivtecha. The first one is silent. The second one is sounded. Beshiv te. Here's the last part. Ha. So how many syllables in this phrase here, in this word?
4.
4. And that's because it has a prefix and it has a suffix. Here's your prefix. Here's your suffix. Here's the 3-letter word from the 3-letter root. So in the word, with it being told the whole word, Beshitecha, the first one is a Shavanach, or a silent. The second one is a Shavanah, is sounded. Beshivtecha. It's short E, but it's sounded. Techa. Techa. Right? Te. This is te. This is Shiv. S-H-I-V. Shiv. So that everybody now can do the Shema, right? Because you're going to go through and find 2 Shabats and know the rule, okay? I've got a couple seconds to review these last ones. The Gadol is the next one. After that, we have the Dalet and we have the Hey. I'll have to be quick with this. Now, we use Aleph and Beit to refer to the first letter of the alphabet and the second letter of the alphabet. In this case, Gadol is not going to be for the third letter of the alphabet. It's going to actually refer to the word Gedolah, or Gadol, meaning big, large. So, the rule is Gedolah or Gadol, a Shavah appearing directly after a Tenuah Gedolah, which is a long vowel. The word for vowel is Tenuah. So Gedolah just means big, a long or large vowel, like a talit. Gadol is a large talit. So Gedolah is the feminine of that. Masculine is Gadol, feminine is Gedolah. So a tenuah vowel that is Gedolah, large, that is a Shavanah. Well, we already learned that, right? Because we said this was not a large, long vowel. It's a shorter vowel, which we call it a medium vowel. So if it's not a long vowel, then it's going to bring this to a glottal stop. Okay? But this is not the lesson here. The lesson is if it's a medium vowel, but if it's a long one, it's going to sound by itself. If this was long, for instance, if there was a yud here, all of a sudden it get its own syllable. Right? Because the rule is, if it's long, it's a Shavanah. If it's short, then it is a Shavanah. It rests as a glottal stop. Shiv versus Shevi, or Shivi, Shivet. Whatever the vowels were. In this case, it'd be Shivet, right? That would be a U here. Beshivetecha. It's not the word. There's no yud there. It's not long. It's shorter. It's a medium length. So it's beshiv. Okay? So if your Shabbat is preceded by a long vowel in front of it, there's no glottal stop. He's moving, right? Wow, I did that. That was pretty good. I did this in paper spell.
You're moving. You're moving.
Man, we could start a healing service. I'm just kidding. Forgive me, Lord. It's Shabbat. All right, so everybody see that? Now, the last two are very easy. Dagesh, a Shabbat under a Dagesh is a Shabbat now. A Shabbat under a letter with a Dagesh is a Shabbat now. Okay?
Oh.
So that's a pretty simple one. I'm going to have to show you examples of that next week. Okay? And the last one, the letter Hey is for the word Hadamot. Hadamot, which is referring to twins or a double. When two same letters, I should say letters, appear next to each other, the first one is a Shabbat. It has a Shabbat, it is a Shabbat Na. And in the word, as in the word Hineni. So when you have two of the same letters, as in Hineni, which means here I am. So we have Hineni, which is two noons, right? Would be he, nay, ni. So here's the one Shabbat in here, but the Shabbat is connected to two different noons. So each noon gets its own sound. So it's he, nay, ni. Because it's not heen. What changed it? Because we know over here it would have been chiv. Why is it not heen and ni? Heen, ni. Because there's two noons. So that changes the rule from where this would normally be a glottal stop, heen, and then ni. It's heen, ni, because there's two noons. It would be the same as if there's any other two letters, two double letters in the word. So if there's hadamot, some twins of these letters, we go from a Shabbat na to a na. Okay? So that's pretty much the rule. I think the hardest one is probably this one, number 2. Because most people have a problem with those two Shabbats. What do we do with them? Okay? First one is silent, second one is sounded. Any questions? All right, I know your heads are swimming with Hebrew dots in your head. Let's close in prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, we thank you, Lord God, for this mnemonic of Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, giving us the rules for the Shabbat Na versus next week's lesson, the Shabbat Nach, where we have a moving Shabbat go to a silent or glottal stop in the Shabbat sound. We pray, Lord God, that you will keep the rules clear in the mind of the students, because they do have a heart to understand the deep things of God and they want to master the Hebrew language. I just thank you for each desire of each student to want to learn more than where they're at right now. In Yeshua's name. B'Shem Yeshua. Amen. God bless you. Shabbat Shalom.
May the Lord bless you and keep you, and make his face to shine upon you, and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you. May the Lord grant you his peace. Yivarechecha Adonai, v'yishmerecha, Ya'eh Adonai, panav elecha v'hunecha, Yisa Adonai, panav elecha v'yaseh lecha shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and make his face to shine upon you, and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you. May the Lord grant you his peace. Yivarechecha Adonai, v'yishmerecha, Ya'eh Adonai, panav elecha v'hunecha, Yisa Adonai, panav elecha v'yaseh lecha shalom.